In this video, we will share information on identifying and solving common ceiling fan problems. Ceiling fan fails to start. The failure of a ceiling fan to start can be attributed to many reasons, which may include jamming of motor, no power supply, or low voltage, wrong or loose connections, defective capacitor, open circuit in regulator, and issues with fan motor winding. Before you start the inspection, you must first turn off the power supply to your ceiling fan. After doing that, rotate the fan manually, and if there is a motor jam, you will need to dismantle and reassemble the unit. Low voltage or no supply of power could also be a reason your fan is not running. And if that is the case, you should check the power supply or correct the input connections accordingly. You should also check for connections at the terminal block of the fan and change them in case they are incorrect. A defective capacitor could also make your fan stop working. In such a case, simply change the capacitor. In case of open circuit in the regulator, check the connections and set them right if not connected properly. Burnt or open circuit fan motor winding can also be the culprit. Therefore, you should check continuity of the fan motor and connections by multimeter or series lamp and replace it in case of any defect. Fan rotates in reverse direction. Does your ceiling fan rotate in the wrong direction? If yes, then the problem could be a defective stator or wrong connections at the terminal block of fan. If the problem is due to wrong connections, check and change the connections. If still the fan rotates in reverse direction, replace the stator. Your fan will start running in the right direction. Noisy fan. People generally complain about their ceiling fan making too much noise. Now, we will talk about how to solve the problem of the irritating scratching noise, tick-tick noise, and humming noise coming out of a ceiling fan. Scratching or rubbing noise. There could be more than one reason why your ceiling fan is making scratching and rubbing noises. Canopy touching the top cover is a major cause of this problem, which can be solved by fixing canopy by leaving ample gap between top cover and the canopy. In case the stator is touching the rotor, you will need to dismantle the fan, readjust motor and stator, and then reassemble the unit. The scratching or rubbing noise can also be there if the cover is rubbing against polyester film or loop clamp. In this case, dismantle the fan and rectify the fault. A worn-out stator shaft can also lead to a noisy fan, and if that's the case, you simply have to replace the stator. Many times, lack of lubrication in bearing causes a fan to make noises. In such a scenario, first start the fan and run it at full speed. If the problem persists, try re-greasing it. And if the bearing is defective, just replace it. Tick-tick noise. A ceiling fan sometimes starts making continuous tick-tick sound, and this is generally caused by loose blade assembly screws or loose trim fixing screws. If that is the case, you should tighten the screws properly. If the problem is loose blade and shank assembly rivets, you will have to replace the blade. Humming noise. There is nothing more irritating than the humming noise coming out of a ceiling fan. One of the main reasons behind the same is the speed regulation through a cheap electronic regulator. In this case, advise customer to use capacitance-based electronic regulator or resistance or choke type regulator. Sometimes a fan makes humming noise only when it's running on inverter power. And if that is the case, explain the same to the customer. If the humming sound is not due to any of the reasons mentioned before, the fan stator could be defective, in which case you will have to replace it. Low speed or low air breeze. If the ceiling fan is running at low speed or is circulating less air, then you first need to check the distance between ceiling and the tip of fan blade. If it's less than 10 inch, advise the customer to use a longer down rod. This low speed or low air breeze problem can also be caused by low input voltage. In this case, check the voltage and inform the same to the customer. If you find a defective capacitor during the inspection, replace it. You also need to note that if the distance from fan motor to ground is more than 3 meters, it will affect air delivery, and in such a case, advise customer to use longer down rod. Wrong selection of blade sweep can also account for low speed and low air breeze problem. Therefore, ensure that the sweep selection is right. If all other parameters are okay and the speed is still low or the fan is unstable, it's time to replace the blades. Fan wobbling or moving unbalanced. Incorrect installation is the primary cause of fan wobbling and unbalanced movement. Check installation of the fan. If installed near beam, less distance between ceiling and fan or center distance between two fans is less, advise customer to correct accordingly. If nut and bolt of the suspension system are loose, tighten them. In case the angle of blades are distorted or there is weight variation between blades, change the blade. In two-piece design, if the bottom cover of motor is unbalanced, you will have to dismantle the fan and then reassemble it after changing position. Speed regulation problems. The fan speed regulation problem is usually because of a faulty regulator. In this case, carry out the basic checking of regulator like terminal soldering, rotary switch continuity, and advise for change accordingly.